Fellas, Vesper's host is here and is a dungeon that contains many secrets. Today, we're going to be going over the mechanics of this dungeon. We're also going to be going over all of its secrets, including the ability to unlock and focus certain weapons. We're also going to be touching on each one of the mechanics here extensively, and we're going to be talking about Icebreaker, its triumphs, which plays a role in its drop chances, and also its exotic catalyst. This is going to be a very long and thick video, fellas, so down below will be timestamps. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, first up, to begin the dungeon, you'll need to go talk to Spider in the New Last City social space. Then you can launch the dungeon from the quest itself from Europa. Now, upon loading into the dungeon, you'll head forward until you enter this room with these boxes. Here you'll be introduced to the main mechanic of the dungeon. Now, after killing ads for a bit, you'll see in the bottom left-hand corner some text that says a viral carrier approaches. Now, these enemies will have icons above their head. The red one is for operator, the yellow one is for scanner. Now, the player with the operator buff will be able to shoot these panels scattered around the area. And the player with the scanner buff will be able to tell which are the correct panels. If you've done Deep Stone Crypt, it's essentially those exact mechanics. Now, if the player with the operator buff shoots the wrong one, they will die. Now, another thing to keep in mind regarding these buffs is that you can only hold one at a time, and they only last for about a minute, which means once that timer below your health reaches 0, you will die. So something to keep in mind. Thankfully, though, you see these yellow glowing deposit spots, and this is where you can insert the buff, and you can essentially just insert it, pick it right back up, and this resets the timer. Now, for this particular encounter, the player with the scanner buff is going to want to look at their HUD, and they're going to see these yellow hexagons on their minimap, which will show where the different panels are. And as you approach these panels, some will turn into white hexagons on your HUD, which means that these are the panels you want to tell the player with the operator buff to shoot. Now, once all the correct panels have been shot, you'll see a text saying airlock power restored, and you can now proceed through the door at the back of the room that is between the two deposit sites. Now, from here, you want to keep moving forward, and you'll reach this room with some ads and 2 paths on the left and the right. Deal with the ads and then head to the right, and there will be a spot where you can drop down off the platform that you were walking on, and you'll see a hole in the wall that you can go through. Now, from here, you'll need to be careful. There's going to be various trip mines placed around, and yes, the trip mines, especially in contest mode at least, have a ginormous radius. But you want to keep moving forward through the path that we take on the screen here, while making sure to dodge and shoot any trip mines along the way. Now that you're through, though, we are officially at our first encounter. This will be using the exact same mechanics that you just learned. Now, to start this encounter, you want to go up to the sphere in the middle and interact with it. Make sure to move out of the way as a brig is going to drop down. And this is where weapons that have perks like Deconstruct is really good here. We're talking 40% more damage to these brigs. Speleologist, Edge Transit, there's a number of Deconstruct weapons, but they shred here. Now, once the brig is dead, there's going to be a number of ads around the area to deal with, and then eventually a viral carrier will spawn, which will drop the scanner buff. Now, once the scanner buff is picked up, 3 doors in the room will open. 1 in the front on the left side and 2 in the back, both the left and right side. Now, it doesn't really matter which door you choose to go through first, as you'll need to hit all of them. So I would just try them all out and see which order works best for your team. Now, for the purpose of this guide, I'm going to talk about the rooms in the order my team did. After picking up the scanner buff, head through this first door on the left-hand side at the front of the room. Here, there'll be some platforms to jump across and some ads to deal with. And after doing some light platforming, you're going to see 2 yellow bar enemies called Machine Priest Assistant. You take them out, and along with all the other ads in the area. Now, after all the enemies are gone, the shielded head will disappear, which will allow you to move forward. Now, you'll continue killing ads, and then behind you, a viral carrier will spawn who will be carrying the operator buff. Now, this is the same as before. Have the player with the scanner buff go up to the panels, figure out which ones the player with the operator buff should be shooting at. Now, at this point, I would suggest having the third player without a buff simply just clear out the ads. The other 2 guys can focus with the scanner and the operator buffs and communicate which panels to shoot. Now, let me just say, if you accidentally spray a single shot off at the wrong panel, it's a good chance it's going to get you killed. So make sure you're very intentional about which panel you are shooting. Now, after all the correct panels have been shot, you're going to see a text saying a nuclear core begins to coalesce. Now, you're going to want both players that have the scanner and operator buffs to deposit them into the terminals in the room. And you can have your third player pick up the nuclear core, although it doesn't really matter who picks it up. But essentially, we're going to make our way back to the starting room with this nuclear core. Now, the player that is holding the core will be limited in their movements. There's also something on the screen called radiation. This is a debuff that counts all the way up to ×10, which will kill you. So again, coordinate with your teammates. If you get close to ×10, drop it and let someone else pick it up. Just don't drop it off the map. Now, as you head back to the starting room, there's going to be a lot of ads along the way. It's going to be some yellow bars. I would say in like maybe normal mode, you can avoid these guys and just go right past them. Contest mode, we definitely have to kill them, but handle them however way you want. Now, back in the beginning room, the main room, there's going to be a big brig waiting for you. Now, you have to kill this brig because essentially killing this brig will allow you to deposit the core at the front of the room. Now, after the core has been deposited, you want to head into the next room, which we chose to be the back left side. You'll proceed forward, dealing with the ads and more yellow bars in your way until you reach this inside area. Now, that scanner and operator buff will need to be picked up, and there'll actually be one right there on the right that you can pick up, and the other one is going to be forward, then to the right inside of this next room. And there's going to be some more yellow bars to deal with, and at the end of the room, there's going to be a second terminal with the other buff. Now, just like the other rooms, guys, scanner calls out the right panels, operator shoots those panels. And again, keep in mind, guys, it's 4 panels every time. Now, shooting the right panels will now unlock and reveal the next nuclear core. Now, the exact same thing here, guys. You want to deposit the operator in the scanner buffs and then start moving that nuclear core back to the main room. Now, once you're back in the starting room, deal with the brig again, deposit the second core, and now we're off to the final room. About the same thing here, guys. The main thing that really changes is that the panel placement in each one of these rooms are different because it's a different physical location. So keep that in mind. Now, after getting that third nuclear core, this is the final one that you have to deposit. The problem is that the final brig is going to be a boss level brig, a chunky boy. Let me just say, guys, if you got Curious of the Fallen Star with Thunder Crash, it eats these guys, man. It does very, very good. You can, of course, bring out some deconstruct weapons if you need to, but that super will shred this big guy. Now, keep in mind, during contest mode, you have a 6-minute timer to do all of this. But outside of contests, there actually is no timer, which makes this encounter a lot easier. So again, take your time, fellas. Don't rush it. Now let's move on to the next encounter. To continue, you'll want to follow the path that we take here on the screen. Once we're through these hallways, we're going to come up on this sort of invasion encounter before we can get to the next real encounter. For this, the goal is to obtain 5 nuclear cores and dunk them into the corresponding receptacles. Now, these dunk points will be spread throughout the encounter area with 5 total splits between 2 main areas. The first 3 are located in the first area that you enter. Now, there's going to be some ads on the way in. Deal with them, and you'll end up in the main starting room. Next, you'll see a door with an energy barrier and a prompt allowing you to power off the door. Doing so will then open the door, and you and your team will gain a power reserve charge. Now, these charges are required to progress and continue opening doors. So the idea is to move together as a team, opening doors with charges, then closing those same doors once you all make it through, to then gain a charge back to open the next door. Now, you're going to repeat this all the way throughout this maze of doors and hallways, and essentially avoid this boss at all costs. This boss does a lot of damage, guys. So be very careful. And yes, you're going to be fighting this guy very soon. Now, to obtain your first power core, follow this path on the screen. This will lead you essentially to a yellow mini boss that you can take out, as well as a major captain. Now, upon defeating this captain, they will drop a power core. You'll essentially need to pick this core up, and this core does have a 60-second timer like the others, but so long as someone is holding on to it, that shouldn't be an issue. Just remember to watch your stacks of radiation and don't get to ×10 or you will die. Now, once you obtain the first core, you want to follow the path here on your screen to make your way to the first dunk spot. Now, after dunking the core, another captain will spawn, allowing you to obtain another core. Once obtained, you simply need to dunk this into the spot labeled 2, located nearest to the spawn. Again, all of these are labeled, and you just do them in ascending order. Now, the last spot in this area will actually be where you first obtained the power core, so make your way back to there to find the third dunk spot. Now, once completed, this will then open this door, allowing you to progress to the next part of the puzzle, and in this first room, you'll encounter yet another captain who will drop another power core. To simply repeat the steps from the first half of the puzzle to complete this encounter. Now, we found the easiest way to do this is travel as a group, because you don't want a situation where people are getting locked in rooms. And you don't want to like leave doors unlocked, because doing so means you can't use that power to unlock another door. So in my opinion, before you move on to each one of these different places to dunk a core, always take that power core with you. Now, once that 5th core is dunked, that's it. The puzzle is done. Be cautious though, the boss is going to be located in the next room that you need to progress through. But you see right here on the ground, there's going to be a hole that you need to drop through to move on. Once inside, it's on to the next encounter. Now, this is going to be your first boss fight. This is encounter 2. And in my opinion, it's a fantastic boss fight. In this room, you're going to see various numbered panels directly in front of you with more spread out in this room. And there's going to be 10 in total. To start the encounter, you're going to head into the room and you're just going to start killing ads, and one of them will have the operator buff, which for now, you just want to grab and then dunk it into the terminal. This is just going to hold the buff for you. Eventually though, a yellow bar called Machine Priest will spawn directly in the middle of the room, and you'll need to kill it. At the same time, there's a servitor boss that's literally over the top who's going to be shooting at you, occasionally spitting out these explosive balls, which I highly advise staying away from. Now, you can also shoot those explosive balls, but in my opinion, just keep your distance. Now, once you kill the Machine Priest, you're going to see a text that says Ranix Unify defends itself. Then you and your squad will be teleported outside. Now, it's from here that you're going to kill Shanks and exploding Shanks that will be trying to rush you. I would advise like hanging back of the room on this one, guys. On top of this, the boss will continue to shoot at you and spit out those explosive balls. And be conscious of the things on your screen. You'll notice that if you're out in the open for too long, there's going to be a debuff that pops up called integration. Once this timer hits 0, you die. The only way to avoid it is literally by hiding behind something. And for some reason, it kind of like takes a second. So if you're like at like 1 second and you go to hide, you'll still die. So in my opinion, start moving quickly, guys. If you're at 2 seconds, get behind something ASAP. Now, after killing the Shanks and dodging the boss's attacks, you'll notice a viral carrier Shank will spawn by the boss. Now, it's this Shank that's going to be carrying the blue buff called Suppressor. Now, you're going to kill him and you're going to pick up the buff, and you'll notice that your grenade ability will be replaced with an icon with 2 heads. Now, the idea here is to get as close to the boss as you can. Use your grenade ability, which will then spawn this blue decoy. And then when you shoot the decoy, if done within range of the boss, you'll see a text that says Ranix loses strength in Unity. Now, this is amazing, guys. The boss servitor, this big servitor, will now split up into 10 smaller servitors. Now, you don't have to be like super close when you do this thing. I normally just got like right here on the corner, which is close enough. And I would say whoever's doing the suppressor mechanic, get used to this, guys. You're going to be doing this a bunch. Actually, all of these mechanics a bunch in the next encounter. Now, when these 10 small servitors split apart, what you need to do is look at these servers. Each one will be named Ranix, followed by a number at the end. Now, it's this number that corresponds with the numbered panels that are back in the main room. Now, to find out which numbers you need to look at the various servitors, and you'll see that 2 of them will stand out from the rest, as they will have multiple glowing eyes on them, as opposed to the one big purple eye that normal servitors have. Essentially, guys, just look at which ones are the odd ones out, and it's always going to be 2. Now, take note of the number that's in the name of that servitor, and those are the panels you'll be shooting when you get back into the main room. Now, to get back to the main room, you literally can just run down the hole that the boss was in, or you can run down the side door. Now, doing so, if you're carrying the suppressor buff, will cleanse you. So you can't take the suppressor buff into this room, but you don't even need it. Now that you have your first 2 numbers, though, you don't want to do anything with them yet. Just hang on to them. Essentially, you just need to repeat the same steps one more time. You want to wait for the Machine Priest to spawn in after killing and clearing ads. You kill that Machine Priest, you'll teleport back outside, you'll get the suppressor buff again, you'll activate your grenade ability, split the servitor up into 10 mini servitors, and then find the 2 servitors that are the odd ones out. Again, it's the glowing eyes, guys. When you look at them, those are the ones that you want to take note of the number in their name. Now, once you have 4 numbers, that's it. When you go back into the main room, you're going to clear ads, and 1 player will grab the operator buff. That's the buff that you deposited earlier. And you're going to shoot the 4 numbered panels that was associated with those servitors. Now, keep in mind, guys, when you do this, you're going to be thrown into a DPS phase against the boss, which means if you have the operator buff, in my opinion, you probably need to deposit it back into the terminal before the boss initiates DPS, as there is a countdown and it will kill you. Plus, if you're running solo, you need to pick up the suppressor buff, which will spawn in from a viral carrier. Again, kill that viral carrier, get the suppressor buff, use your grenade ability on the boss again, except this time, you'll be able to actually do damage to all the mini servitors. Now, keep in mind, throughout this process, integration will be applied, meaning even if the boss has already been quote-unquote suppressed, if that integration timer debuff is still on you, fellas, you need to hide. You need to get out of there, or it will still kill you. Now, this takes us to doing damage to these 10 small servitors. It's kind of a tight window, guys, and I actually found the most success with Parasite, a Behemoth Titan, and Star Eater scales on my exotic class item. Essentially having Feast ×6, I would open up with the Parasite shot at ×20, do a chunky amount of damage, and then pop Glacial Quake and just start doing the heavy attack over and over. Guys, Glacial Quake is really, really good. And it's even better if you have a teammate that is using a weapon that has kinetic tremors, or maybe even Dragon's Breath with ignition, something there that's shattering all those stasis crystals. Literally just keep popping your super heavy attack over and over. It applies all of this stasis crystals across them, and when it shatters, it absolutely messes everything up. Now, one of my editors actually was using Gathering Storm with Roger's Harness, which also worked pretty well. Now, I believe Tether is disabled. Maybe it's been re-enabled since this guide has gone live. Tether would also be good here because, of course, it would tether all of these enemies. But considering that this boss is not about doing damage to a single target, but spreading the damage out to everything, find things that does good AoE damage. From Dragon's Breath to Parasite to grenade launchers to splash damage supers with AoE effects. Anything like that, guys, will chunk. And even during contest mode, we were able to clear this very efficiently. I'm sure in normal mode will probably be a 1 phase with these setups. Now keep in mind that contest mode does have a 3 damage phase attempt only, meaning if you don't get the damage done and kill the boss within 3 damage phases, you essentially wipe. But don't fret, guys, for normal mode, you're not limited to how many damage phases that you can do. And this applies to my solo players too, because yes, this thing can be solo. Now after you defeated the boss and looted the chest, you want to head back outside through this newly opened door. And on the right side, you're going to follow the path until you drop down, and from here, you just want to keep going forward. And you're going to be in this traversal section with some jumping and platforming. Not a Destiny raid or dungeon without some platforming, but this is going to essentially take you on your way to the final boss. Now as you're jumping between various platforms, this yellow lighting will eventually start to spawn and will strike certain platforms. Now pay attention to this yellow lighting, guys. If you see this, you run like hell. This lighting is going to be present in the final boss room, and in contest mode, it was essentially an insta-kill. Now we are at the final encounter. Here, we must defeat the corrupted puppeteer, aka Atrax. This is actually a raid boss from the Deepstone Crypts raid, but Atrax here is corrupted, hence why she looks a bit different. Now the encounter begins with Atrax standing in front of the anomaly, and as soon as you shoot at her, the anomaly will pulse. Now at this point, you must drop down this hole or die. You'll then be brought into the spawn room, which is essentially the spawn room for this encounter. Now, within this room, you will see 16 buttons, each showing a number, 1 through 4, and there are 3 buff deposit locations, 4 pillars, number 1 through 4, and 4 pod doorways. Don't worry, guys, I know it seems overwhelming, but you'll have this down in no time. Now, to start this encounter, you want to go near that ball where Atrax will spawn. At this moment, as we begin to spawn, Atrax will also summon 2 immune melee clones that have an AoE bubble around them, and when that bubble gets anywhere near you, it will give you stacks of radiation. Now, the same mechanic here, guys. If you get 10 stacks of radiation, you die, which means the viral carrier with the suppressor buff is priority number 1. You want to kill that viral carrier, pick up that suppressor buff, and essentially do the exact same mechanic that you did from the second encounter. The goal here is when you do that, you're going to shoot the clone or do some sort of damage to the clone, and this will cause an AoE effect, which will drop those radiation bubbles around those clones. So again, pick up the suppressor buff, use your grenade ability, it will drop the blue clone, do damage to it, and boom, AoE effect, they are now able to be killed. Now, upon killing these 2 clones, 2 more will appear, and with it will be a new scanner enemy. You see, everything we've done up to this point is going to combine all 3 of these mechanics, similar to how Deepstone Crypt is. Now, the purpose of scanner is to look at the 4 pillars to see which number is needed to be shot by the operator. After this is called out, the scanner will then deposit their buff. The suppressor, whoever holds that buff, can also deposit that as well. And after you kill those second pair of clones, this will cause the operator enemy to spawn in, and when you kill that enemy, you can now pick up the operator buff. Now the operator will be told to shoot a single number, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Now there are 4 of each. So for example, if you're told to shoot 1, you are going to have to shoot 4 buttons all labeled 1. I know they're kind of spread out all over the place. There's no real rhyme or method to any of this. You just kind of got to look. Eventually you'll become familiar enough where you're going to know where they are, some more than others. Now once this is done correctly, you're going to have 4 pods that will open, allowing you to drop down to the next room. Now before you drop down, guys, deposit your buffs. If you still are holding the suppressor buff or the scanner buff or the operator buff, deposit those things. You have a time run and you don't want to carry this buff with you and die while you're clearing ads. Where you're going to be going into the next rooms will contain those buffs that you can pick up. Now, which side you need to drop down will actually be indicated by flashing red lights. There's a left side and right side. You'll see these flashing red lights between the two drop points, and whichever side is flashing, that's the side you drop down on. And that's because that's where the boss is and where you need to go to continue doing these mechanics. Now, dropping down, you actually have 2 points to get to the boss room. You can actually go through the main area, which will have a number of enemies there, including those clones with those radiation bubbles, a number of marauders. So it's a lot more ad heavy. There's also another path which takes you in like the underbelly. It's another way to get to the room that you're trying to get to. That's also a pretty easy way to get directly to the room you're trying to go. Essentially though, you want to make it into this room where Atrax will be present, and it's here that you're going to see your buffs: the operator buff, the suppressor buff, and the scanner buff. Now the goal here is for the operator to pick up their buff and to shoot the 4 buttons in the room. Now there's no order to how you shoot them, just simply shoot them. There are no fake ones here. When that happens, a number of clones will appear. However, you cannot kill these clones. These are not like the clones with the radiation bubbles around them. It's here that the person with the scanner buff has to now tell you which one is the correct one. Essentially here, you want to take the scanner buff and you want to go next to each one of these Atrax and see which one will either make the hexagon turn white or disappear. Now there's only going to be one that goes white, and it's that one that you and the entire team need to kill. Now as far as the person with the suppressor buff, you really don't have to be doing much. You can be picking up the suppressor buff and using it to take out those clones with the radiation bubbles, and if you're getting overwhelmed, I would suggest doing that before entering this portion of the encounter. As the moment you shoot those 4 panels, you pretty much got to book it, guys. You got to kill the right clone that the scanner identifies, because after killing that clone, a nuke will drop. Now, before you pick up this nuke and do anything with it, you want to take the buffs that you just picked up and put them back in their terminals. The operator, the scanner, and the suppressor. They're going to be spread out around the room. Just dunk them. If you don't, you're going to be in a situation where you're going to have to go get those buffs again. It's not necessarily difficult to get them, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. Ideally, though, you want to dunk them, pick up the bomb, go into this middle area, which looks like something straight out of Marathon, and dunk the nuke. What it essentially will do is microwave the room above you. The Atrax boss herself will move on to the next room, and the boss's health bar will lose half of its shield. Now, when you come back out, you don't have to rush to the next room, guys. You can pick up the suppressor buff and just start killing those clones that have built up. So take your time, guys. Weed those things out. There's going to be a number of marauders there that's in that middle section that you can also kill as well. And if you lost the buffs, maybe you jumped inside of the room to dunk the nuke before depositing, don't worry. Where we're going to go, we'll actually have ads that carry those buffs, so you can pick them back up again. But again, ideally, you do want to deposit those things. Now, I do want to mention one point that we took advantage of before we go to that next area. All of those puppets, guys, they're yellow bars, which means you can mark them with Cenotaph and a trace rifle and create heavy ammo for your teammates. We actually used this during contest mode as we were finding ourselves getting damage checked. This right here is a fantastic way to just top off your heavy, and you could do this before going into that next room. Now, to get to the next room, you can actually just go through this back hallway. This is the hallway that has all the trip mine grenades in it, guys. And let me just say, they have a lot of range on them. Shoot them as you go, keep enough distance. You can, if you have enough confidence in your ability to move through this, you could just scoot right past them, but you'll make your way through this hallway until you enter the room with the Atrax boss. Now, you're gonna do the exact same thing here, guys. You gotta pick up the buffs that you just had. You're gonna shoot the 4 panels with operator buff. You're gonna use the scanner to see which clone to attack. You're gonna gun the scanner down. The difference with this one is that you don't have to redunk your buffs. You literally can just pick the bomb up and go straight into the room, as you won't need these buffs for the damage phase. Now, after activating this nuke, guys, this will drop the last health of that immunity shield on Atrax. You can now proceed to push back up to the middle area where you initially dropped down in. This is actually the area that contains the same ads that if you ever do lose your suppressor, operator, or scanner buffs, the ads in this room will have it. And if they don't have it in this room, it'll be in the other room that looks just like this one. Now, to get the DPS phase, you step in the teleporter. You'll be back in the initial room you started in, and then you'll take the big teleporter back to where you originally saw Atrax before this encounter. You'll literally be shot out the top, and you'll have Atrax right in front of you. Now, as far as damaging Atrax, I'm going to say that going going with the most optimal strat is probably not necessary for normal mode. Normal mode, you can literally probably go in there, use whatever you want, and you'll get the job done. However, for contest mode, even though it's not going to be available by the time this guide comes out, for contest mode, we took advantage of Curious of the Fallen Star, as it's actually doing more damage than it's supposed to. We use that. We use Grand Overture. We would actually have times 20 with the volley. We'd immediately open up with everything we had. Les would actually rock Speaker Helmet up here with Ember of Benevolence so that he could drop a healing turret down to keep us alive, because during this boss phase, you are going to be constantly moving, guys. It's kind of like the Witness. The most dangerous thing here are these lightning strike attacks that she will spawn in. They are lethal, guys. It's kind of hard to tell, especially if you're rocking like a Will of Radiance. My suggestion, just keep moving. And if the ground looks slightly orange, get the hell out of the way, man. Now, throughout this entire damage phase, there are going to be a number of clones that Aatrox will be spawning. Some of them will do range attacks. Some of them will rush you with melee attacks, which is very disruptive. And if you're using weapons like rocket launchers or grenade launchers, you could easily kill yourself. Now, I didn't use the cheese, but there is a small cheese spot, I've been told. It's like on the side of this building that you're going to need to end up going into to deposit another bomb. But if you hang out on the lip of this area, I've been told that you can do DPS here and not be struck by the lightning strikes. Now, I had a lot of folks suggesting standing on the tank. Here's the thing, guys. I've stood on that tank and the lightning strikes still killed me. Again, though, if you use our dim links down below, I have a dim link for Les's build, which he utilized to keep us alive throughout this damage phase. He would even just sit there and clear ads so that he could feed orbs to us for extra supers. And then I was using Grand Overture with Curious, and this easily got the job done in contest mode. So it should absolutely wreck in normal mode. Now, the only real mechanic in this boss fight is when these wave of clones rush you, there'll be a clone that contains one of these nukes, and it'll be one of the clones that spawns on the main platform with you. When you kill that clone, you don't have to immediately pick up the bomb, guys. You can continue doing damage. It's only until you see the boss do its animation, and of course you'll notice when you're no longer able to do damage is when you need to pick up the bomb, go inside of this room, deposit it, and then wait for the sequence outside to occur. Essentially what's happening here is by depositing the bomb, you're able to extend the damage phase, which means you could come right back out and start doing damage. Now, the damage in the second phase, some people say it's a bit easier. The clones aren't as aggressive, so you could set up a bit more. I say for the most part, the lightning attacks are about the same. I will say when I was using Leviathan's Breath for a bit, the stun effect in the second phase seemed easier to get off and sustain versus the first phase, where Aatrox was pretty much going apeshit right out the gates. So again, one of the clones that spawns on the main platform, you will kill, and they will drop a nuke. You'll see the animation from Aatrox. She'll go immune. You'll even see a text that says communing with the anomaly. That is your cue to pick up the nuke and head to the bunker. Do not wait too long, guys, after that point, or you will die. You'll get closed out of it and you'll wipe. Now, when the second damage phase is completely over, you'll be hitting immunities again, and then you'll have to drop down the main hole. Keep in mind, you could still die throughout this entire process. Literally, as you're dropping into the hole, you can get sniped. Hell, one of the clones can even drop down with you. So don't just drop down, jump in your inventory. You want to make sure you're safe when you drop down before proceeding to swap any loadouts. Now, that's essentially the boss room in a nutshell. I feel like we're probably going to make a more extended guide, especially on this encounter for solo players. I'll be doing this entire dungeon solo, and I'm sure my strategies are going to change just slightly. But as far as team-based strategies, this is what we use. This is what we got the most success with. And I think if you're just trying to get in there and get some loot, get icebreaker, things like that, I think everything here is going to serve you pretty well. You run, you do these mechanics, and then at the end of it all, you'll eventually slay the corrupted puppeteer. Now that the guide for the main dungeon is out of the way, we can now move on to finishing the rest of that quest, the original quest that you picked up from Spider. This is going to lead us to the ability to focus for weapons and for armor, which of course leads into the way to acquiring the exotic catalyst for Icebreaker. Guys, it's a pretty lengthy quest. This took us just under 5 hours to do from start to finish, so be prepared. And big shout out to Scaro and his squad for grinding these puzzles out. If you want to check out his content, guys, down below will be a link to his channel. Now, after completing the dungeon for the first time, you go talk to Spider, who will task you with going back in the dungeon and finding 3 messages. Now, to get these 3 messages, there's going to be 3 puzzles that you need to complete. The first one is after you've completed the first encounter. You'll be in the back right room, and we call it the heart room. In here, you'll find these circular plates on the ground with one blinking. Essentially, step step on that plate and it will turn into a solid color and a new plate will line up and also be blinking. You're going to repeat this process until all plates are lit up and you'll receive an ascended alloy and you'll be able to collect the message. Just make sure here, guys, that you collect that message. Now for the next puzzle, you're going to make your way to the servitor maze where you need to deposit the new cores. Now to make this easier for us, we opened everything up and then got the boss to move over to the 4th nuke site so that he would leave us alone. You're going to head into the room near the spawn where you bank the first nuke, and at the back of that room you're going to see a terminal that you can interact with, which will then spawn 8 triangles. These triangles will correspond to plates that are around this general area. Now to start, you want to look at the screen and see which triangle is blinking. I honestly wish this could be a bit brighter, but this is what we're dealing with. Now Scaro actually threw together a map of this servitor maze as well as where the plates are for these triangles, so you can actually see how this overlays. Essentially though, you want to match the triangle that is blinking with the plate. Head on over to it, step on it, and then head back into the room to see which next triangle is blinking, and just keep doing that over and over. It's kind of hard to do it if you're not looking at the map, guys, and I will say if you're just navigating around this area, you may step on the wrong plate if you're trying to wrap your head around it. It's okay, it does restart if that's the case, so you will have to start at step 1, but it doesn't ruin anything. Now once all of the plates have been stepped on, you'll then get an ascended alloy, and now you can collect the second message. Now on to the third puzzle. This one is going to be located after the first boss. The boss is the servitor that splits up into multiple servitors. You're going to head through the traversal section, you're going to go past the brig, and this will take place in this open area where this lightning first starts to strike down. This is the exact same concept, except there are going to be 10 plates, and these are much more spread out. You're going to have this middle console right here that's going to show you which plates to go to. Now the issue with this one is that everything is flipped. Now you can utilize what Scaro did, which is essentially numbering these plates, starting with the first plate being 1 and 10 being all the way at the end. And then you can overlay this with the console. This is honestly the easiest way to do this, guys, because you can easily get turned around and reset yourself as things here are pretty much mirrored and flipped rather than just placed over the top. And the activation terminal is going to be located in the center, and this is going to be right beside the plate numbered 5. Here right now, we're going to show you where all 10 plates are located and what number they are. Now that you know where the plates are though, to complete this, you essentially just do what we did in the previous puzzle. Match the plates with the blinking triangle. Now throughout this area, there are other consoles that you can look at for reference on which one is blinking. But one thing to note is that the puzzle can reset if you take too long, or at least it seems to be the case for us. We took too long at one point and it just automatically reset. So you do have to be somewhat quick. It's not a super short timer, guys, but I would definitely move with a bit of urgency. Now, once all the plates are lit up, you're going to get another ascended alloy, and you can now collect the third message, and you'll be granted the first level access token. Now that you have this, you can access the first secret chest, which is near the end of the servitor maze before dunking the 5th nuke. Now, you may be able to backtrack from where you are, but we actually had to just restart the dungeon and essentially make our way back to the maze. Once you're here, though, you're going to head into this door, which you can now open up, and you'll be able to loot the chest. Now, something to note though, for some reason, this chest is bugged. We had a situation where it would only let one player loot it per instance. So you may have to reset the encounter so that the next player could loot the chest. However, there does seem to be a way around this where everyone just loots the chest at the exact same time. Do a countdown, pick it up, and hopefully you don't have to reset anything. Now, after finishing those 3 puzzles, you'll now have 3 more puzzles and 3 more messages that need to be completed. The first one will once again start in the heart room after the first encounter, which you can backtrack from the secret chest to and head back to that first encounter area. Now, once you get here, you're going to see that there are red number pads, just like you see during the first boss encounter. Now, what you need to do here is have one player pick up the scanner buff and the other player on the operator buff. And the scanner player needs to find out which number pads the operator has to shoot. Now, this works differently from how it was so far though. Instead of looking at your HUD for which one turns white, you instead need to look for the ones that disappear. Those are the ones that you're going to be calling out to your operator to shoot. So again, you'll have the the scanner buff, you'll go up to each one of these panels. Whichever one disappears off your HUD, that's the one that needs to be shot. Now, once all the correct number pads are shot, you'll get another ascendant alloy and you can collect the message. Now, our next puzzle is going to be located after the servitor's boss room. You head up to the platform where the brig is, and you'll be able to grab the scanner and operator buffs there. All the number pads will be located in this area, with some on the brig platform, some on the platforms you just first jumped across, and there's even one up near where the lightning starts spawning. Again though, whoever it is that has scanner needs to go up to each one of these panels and call out which one of these disappeared. Now, I will say this area is a bit larger. Keep in mind, you do have a timer there that you're able to hold the buffs, so make sure you do refresh it. Now, after all these are shot, you get your reward and you can now collect the next message. Now we're on to the 6th puzzle, which is after you fight the boss captain, and essentially you can head back outside again. You're going to jump across the platforms and head down below into the building, and you can collect the operator and scanner buffs. Now, you're going to grab these buffs and you're going to look for the numbers that disappear and call them out to be shot by the operator. You'll then get your ascended alloy and you can collect the message, and here you'll get the 2nd level access token. Now, you may have seen it before, but the door where you can use this 2nd security clearance is back in the direction you just came. You want to head back inside, past where you just killed ads, into the room that had all the trip mine traps. You're going to jump onto this platform, and then straight ahead, you're going to see a door with a trip mine in front of it. You're going to open the door, and you're going to loot the chest, and you get a reward and be told to visit Spider again. Now you're going to be required to travel back to the last city. You're going to speak with Spider, who will give you some dialogue and some lore background on things, and task you to go back into the dungeon once more to use your key on the 2nd level Braytech storage model. Now, what does that mean? Basically, there are going to be 4 blue screens that are cycling through random numbers that you need to find and shoot. Now, our team tried backtracking from our original checkpoint all the way to before the 2nd boss, but it glitched. So we actually had to end up restarting the dungeon. Again, guys, we ended up redoing this dungeon multiple times. So if you're in a situation where you're like, dude, I can't go back to these different areas, it's a good chance, like us, that you will have to restart this entire dungeon again. The good thing is you're getting drops every time you do these encounters. So again, we launch back from the beginning. You're going to clear the first encounter again, head towards encounter 2, and you'll eventually end up in this section with doors and this gap you normally jump over. Now, you're going to head to the door, and then right above it is where you shoot, which will stop the numbers from rotating and turn it into a solid number. Then the next one is going to be right before the rally flag, before the boss, and instead of going right in that direction, go left instead, and there will be another blue pad with numbers to shoot that'll rotate. When you shoot it again, it will give you a solid number. Now, the next 2 pads of shoots are after the 2nd encounter. First is by the brig area. You're going to jump across these platforms here, and about halfway, you're going to turn around and you'll see it on the wall to shoot. Now, the 4th number pad is at the top of this area between where the 9 and 10 circular plates were before. Just before heading inside, turn around and it'll be above you, a bit higher up on the wall. Now, after you shot all of these numbers, you're going to proceed forward to where the 2nd security clearance door was, the same one we were just at. Now, on the wall, you're going to see 4 numbers, and there's going to be an operator buff to your left that you can pick up to shoot the pads underneath it. Now, when you pick up the operator buff, you'll see that the panels will line up and reveal 1 through 4. The code that we're going to enter here is 42. This is the one that we got from Spider before. So you essentially just need to shoot the 4th pad that says 4 and the 2nd pad that says 2 for 42. You can then loot the chest, which will give you our class item for the dungeon. This is the only way to get the class item here, guys. Now, this will also progress the quests and will ask you to go visit Spider again. And the reason this is 42 is because if you look at the class item, where this lore text is, you'll see that it says Tech Notice 42. And that seems to be the case for all the loot here, guys. All the loot from the dungeon has a number attached to it, which can be entered in this room. You can find them by going to your collections, go to your badges, and find Vesper's hose, and you'll see all the armor and then all the weapons, and you can see the codes for each of these. What this allows you to do here, guys, is that once a week per character, you can come in here, open up this chest, and farm for a specific item. Perhaps you want that aerial denial grenade launcher. Well, for all 3 times, enter its code in, and you'll get a guaranteed drop. However, before we can even begin focusing for the other armor and weapons, there are more puzzles we must complete. Now we're going to restart the dungeon again. I'm like, Cross, how many times are we going to restart this thing? Don't worry, we're getting to the end of this. You're going to go back to the heart room though, after completing the first encounter, and you'll notice a pattern. This is where each new set of puzzles begins. In front of where the terminals that contain the augment buffs, you're going to see a bunch of red numbers, and then to the left and to the right, there are going to be some blue screens with numbers. The goal here is to find 4 numbers numbers that add up to equal the number on the left. For us, we had 13. So one of us grabbed the operator buff and we essentially shot 6, 4, 1, and 2, which equals 13. Now, it's a good chance it's going to be different for you. So again, find the 4 numbers to shoot, but it's always going to be 4 numbers that will equal the number that you see in front of you. Now, if it's not exact, it will reset. You can also see your current progress as you're shooting on the right-hand side, but once done correctly, both numbers should be the same, and you'll get an ascended alloy and you can collect your message. Then the next puzzle is pass the servitor mace. Before jumping over this gap, just make sure to turn around and shoot the blue numbers so that it stops. Now, I'm not 100% sure if you need to shoot the 4 number pads every time, but we did it just to be safe. But you jump over the gap now, and you're going to see a terminal with the operator buff, and there's going to be red numbers around the room, and then 2 sets of blue numbers. Now, the one on the right is the number you're going to need to multiply to. That's right, fellas, we're multiplying. Now, this is the same as before. You need to shoot 4 numbers. For us, we had 84, and for us to reach that, we shot 4 times 3 times 7, which equals 84. Now, we needed one more number, so we just shot 1. So 84 times 1 is 84. Again, it's going to be different for you guys, but it's always got to be 4 numbers that you hit. Now, after entering your numbers correctly, you're going to get an ascended alloy and you collect another message. Then the next puzzle is in the room with these stairs, right before the room where the security clearance door is. You're going to clear out the ads, then at the top of the stairs will be the most complex one yet. That's still not that bad. Here you're going to see 2 sets of 2 panels on the left and on the right. Then in the middle, 6 more blue panels with 3 numbers. The goal here is to shoot 4 numbers to make the number on the left and shoot 4 numbers to make the number on the right, which those 2 can be multiplied together to equal the big number in the middle. For us, we had 255, so we started with that to see what is it divisible by, which turned out to be 15 and 17. First, we needed 4 numbers to come together to make 15, so we shot 1, 2, 4, and 8, which gave us 15. You can see it here on the screen. Now we needed 4 more numbers to give us 17, so we shot 1, 2, 6, and 8, giving us 17. Again, 15 times 17 is 255. This completed this puzzle, giving us yet another ascendant alloy though, and a message to collect. Now that those 3 puzzles are done, we can go back to the level 2 security door, which is in the next room over. Essentially, you want to grab the operator buff again, and you're able to shoot 3 numbers, which can focus for armor if you would like to do so. But we have one more puzzle to complete, with this one allowing you to focus for weapons. Now you're going to proceed through this door back outside, but instead of jumping down to the platforms, you're going to head to the left, and there's going to be a small part of the wall that you can fit through. Now this puzzle is a bit of a doozy. The room has a chest in the middle and 4 pillars in each corner of the room, which contains a ton of numbers on them. For the purpose of explaining how this works, this is how we number the pillars. Facing the direction of the chest, we have top left, top right, then bottom left, and then bottom right. Now I don't necessarily know how this was solved or even figured out. We learned it from Scaro, but God bless whoever did this. Essentially though, you want to grab the operator buff. You're going to go to the top right to activate and start. You're then going to look to the top left and you're going to shoot 1000 for 1000. Then you're going to activate the bottom right. And now you're going to shoot the top right numbers 41114. Then you're going to go activate the bottom left and you're going to shoot the bottom right 0011. Then you're going to go activate the top left and then you want to aim toward the bottom left and shoot 1. Then you want to activate the bottom right and then aim at the top left and shoot 0100. Then you're going to activate the bottom left and then look to the bottom right and shoot 0010. Then you want to activate the bottom right and then look to the bottom left and shoot 3. Then you'll go to the top right, activate that, and then aim at the bottom left and shoot 3 again. Then go to the top left, activate it, and then aim at the top right and shoot 114. Then go to the top right and activate it, and then aim to the top left and shoot 0101. Now activate the top left and then aim at the top right and shoot 12114. Now then go to the bottom left, activate it, and then aim at the top left and shoot 0010. And then aim at the bottom right and shoot 0111. I know you're thinking, Cross, why in the hell would I do any of this? Fellas, it's worth it. I promise. You gotta believe, man. You're already too deep. Keep going. Now, after doing all of this, you're gonna see electricity starting to build up off of the wires. It will then say access granted, and you can now open the chest, giving you loot. A masterwork objective will be completed, and we can now also focus for weapons at the second security clearance chest, which again can be done once per character each week. Now the last and final step is going to be to obtain Icebreaker's exotic atlas. You're going to need Icebreaker for this, and you're going to have to find 4 stasis crystals that you need to destroy, which will reveal numbers. Now it's been brought to my attention not to do this on a character that has already focused for a weapon this week. I'm not 100% sure if if that is required. And we're going to talk about looting the exotic catalyst in just a moment because I did encounter a bug. But this is going to be the last time that you need to reload into the dungeon from the beginning, but do it once more, guys. You're going to complete the first encounter, then you're going to go to the door, walk up these stairs, and you're going to see the stasis crystal. It's going to be in the corner. You need to shoot it with Icebreaker. When it shatters, in the ceiling just above you, more stasis crystals will shatter, and it will reveal a code in the ceiling. Ours was number 4. Yours might be different. The main thing is, guys, write this down. The next crystal is going to be located in the servitor maze. After depositing the 3rd nuke charge, the door will open. Clear out the ads, and then instead of lowering the shield to progress, go to the back in this corner, and there will be another crystal to shoot, which then on the wall behind you reveals another number, ours being 4 again. Next, complete the second encounter, head forward, then as you drop down to begin the jumping section, turn completely around, and there will be a crystal to shoot. Directly behind it will be the next number, ours being 3. Now, the final stasis crystal is going to be located in the same room where the security door is. You're going to jump up to the platform, then walk to the right and shoot the crystal. This will shatter more stasis crystals, revealing our final number, and for us, this was 1. Now we head back into the security room. You're going to grab the operator buff, and you're going to shoot whatever your code is. Again, for us, it was 4431. Upon doing this, you can now loot the chest, and you will be rewarded the Icebreaker Catalyst, and it'll be fully completed. Now, let me just say, guys, if you encounter an issue where you go up to the chest and you cannot loot it, don't worry, don't freak out. Tell your teammates, don't loot it yet. Make sure you have an interaction button to allow you to loot the chest. If that does not pop up for you, I had this issue. I simply swapped to another character and then looted the chest with my teammates, and this gave me the Icebreaker Catalyst, even though I had not even done the dungeon on my Warlock. So if you run into that issue, guys, again, just swap characters. So guys, that is everything that Vesper's host has to offer. Its secrets, its mechanics, its exotic catalyst, the ability to focus armor and focus weapons. I hope this guide helps you. Again, we're going to have reviews on all of the weapons that drop in this dungeon, including its god rolls. And we're going to have a deeper dive review on Icebreaker with its exotic catalyst since we just unlocked it. So be looking out for those. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.